Welcome to Pragyata's podcast 82.5 Degrees East. While this episode comes after a long gap because of our small team's preoccupation with a host of other activities, we're happy that it comes at all. And I want to thank Ruchi Sood for making this possible. In this part, we bring to the listeners one of the greatest exponents of Indian classical dance of this era, someone whose impact on all kinds of art forms and artists cannot be overstated. Born in 1944 in Mumbai, she began her training as a dancer at the tender age of 4, though I have reason to believe that informally it would have begun even earlier than that. It is difficult to associate her with just one dance form, as she has mastered many like Bharatnatyam, Odissi and Manipuri, and therefore I find myself employing the generic term dance instead of naming just one. She is also a polyglot, and with degrees in Sanskrit and German literature. The Government of India has honoured her on several occasions, most notably by presenting her with the Padma Bhushan in 1992 and the Padma Vibhushan, that is India's second highest civilian award, in 2003. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Sonal Mansingh ji. And joining me for this conversation is our advisor at Pragyata, Sonali Hardikar. Welcome to our podcast, Sonalji, and I invite Sonali to start off the conversation.
So I'm going to jump right in and ask the question that I'm dying to ask. Probably it is an inflammatory question, and you can tell me if it is that. But the more we go into understanding the different dance forms that you perform, teach, and have been celebrated for, the basic question that I would want to start with is, do you think the dances of India are religious and should be treated as religious art forms, or are they not?
Your question sounds very simple, but the question is slightly, I think, I would like to give it a different direction. First of all, in that case, one would have to define the word religion. It is so loosely used more and more that it has become almost like an abuse. Whereas religio in Greek, it's a Greek word, the root is Greek, and it means to know. It's just like Vidya. It translated in Sanskrit, Hindi, our mother tongues. We would call it Vidya. Vid is to know, and therefore Vidya. So, but when we really understand the word, which we should before we discuss anything, yes, the arts of India are not just dance, even the music, even the painting, the sculpture, even the motifs of Rangoli, Alpana, Kolam, Mandana, even the motifs on saris and the weaving. All these are based on this Vidya, which connects the Ihaloka with Paralok, which
Yes,
connects us to the Mega.
the here and the
And
now, yes,
yes,
cosmic.
yeah, right.
Okay, so why I had asked this question and why I had kept it as open-ended as I could, where it can seem extremely simple, is that currently there is a scenario where yoga is not Hindu or Bharatnatyam is not Hindu. And now I was reading and I did share this kind of article with Ashish, where now Odissi is not Hindu, is being said. And uh, so the mudras were kept, and the person is a JNU scholar, and she did bow down to her guru, but she said, I'm not going to bow down to Ganesha and I'm not going to do these things because this is not Hindu, this is upper caste appropriation of the dance form, and that is what my research is. Uh, what would you say to this direction of research that is being taken up in all and almost all art forms today?
It's become very fashionable. The liberal, intellectual, secular discourse, all in quotes. I firmly believe that the word Hindu, again, we go back to these words. When you say Muslim, you know that they practice Islam. They have one book, one prophet, one God. When you say Christian, there is one book, whether Old Testament or New Testament, and they have Jesus Christ and the Godfather. And we know all this. So again, the confusion is being created, number one, as to who is a Hindu. And there have been wonderful discussions on this. Whether you believe in Ganesha, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Vishnu, Shiva, not believe, how does it matter? Whether you go to temple regularly, whether you light a diya or do agarbatti, whether you bow or not bow, whether you do yagya homam at home or not do, whether you put a tilak kumkum or bindi, who is there to ask you, challenge you? No one. So I think the whole idea is so distorted, and in a way pains me that it is being taken to such absurd limits. You can bow or not bow. You can even kick your guru. Who is there to ask you? What they do in their private lives and demonstrate it somewhat in the public life, is there anyone to question them? No. Okay. Second point, my point has been, because I think last year I was part of a panel on International Women's Day. And I have always said that why not International Man's Day also? That apart, the crux of the thing was the anchor lady kept saying, "Oh, that concept now that has gained ground, Durga and Mahishasura. Mahishasura is a Dalit. There's again this year something came up, and because he's black, so there is Ranga Bheda." So what I had to say, and that applies to Ganesh and everything, I said we in India, the Indic traditions, the Indic thinking, it's a very liberal thinking anyway, and we mix up history with concepts. Krishna is history, Radha is a concept. Shiva, Parvati, all are concepts, given form, attributes for our bird brains to try and conceptualize, conceive, think, imagine. Like that, Durga and Mahishasura are concepts. But Guru is a living person. You don't bow to Ganesh, Ganesh is not coming to hit you. You don't bow to your Guru, the Guru may take exception to that and may not teach you further. So I think we need to really understand that it's very nice and fashionable to discuss all these things. I'd rather do the positive thinking.
I think, I think that makes sense. So let's just, so the last thing that you mentioned about the Guru Shishya Parampara and, and the various, and the difference between, and how history and concepts are intertwined in our collective imagination. One of the questions that I personally wanted to ask you was specifically about the Guru Shishya Parampara, and of course the Devadasi tradition that I'd also mentioned in the email. So a few days back, I got into a discussion on the social media with some people on the origin of the Devadasi system and how it actually was brought into effect to give to provide that chance to women to excel in arts and the sciences, when traditional society, I mean their traditional roles in the society were otherwise restricted to maintaining their households. So but could you tell us a little more, because there is a lot of misconception about this institution and how it started, then how it got affected as India's history evolved, with the invasions? What happened? How did it get degenerated to a point where it was no longer a respectable institution, or whatever happened? I mean, what is your view of the whole thing? How does Guru Shishya Parampara fit in with the Devadasi tradition, and what is really what is it that the Devadasi tradition really is?
I will try to summarize my own thoughts without quoting anyone, because I like to present my own thinking over the decades and years. Um, Earlier, in the earliest times, that is much before Christ, there have been rock cut monuments. Yeah. So the rock cut temples like the Rani Gumfa near Bhuvaneshwar in the Khandagiri, then the Kailashnath temple at Ellora, and there are so many rock cut monuments which were called temples, which we now call temples. And later on, the king was also not a king, but the chief of a particular clan or a tribe. So the best man was selected, like in the Janapadas, the Lichavi Janapadas, Vaishali, Kaushambi, in the now in Uttar Pradesh. And that is where Amrapali also lived, one of the greatest dancers of India. Now, what I'm coming to is that as chieftains were raised, the status was raised to a king. The kingdoms expanded, the land mass expanded, more revenues, and the king's dabdaba, the splendor, also increased. The king became the representative of gods on earth, and the king would like to dedicate and present the best he had to the Ishtadeva. Temples were created, first the small ones, and then they got bigger. And the best creation in human race is the female. The form itself is so enchanting. The grace and beauty, the poise and elegance of a female body is unmatched by anything else. And thus started the whole idea of dance and music presented in front of the Ishtadeva, Ishtadevi, whoever that was. Also, dance and music have always been considered the shortest paths to sadhana and attaining whatever we know as moksha or nirvana or liberation, because it's an immediate connection to Akshara Brahma, Nada Brahma, the Brahma itself, the vibrational theory for which three physicists got Nobel Prize now. That, in very beautiful artistic way, aesthetic way, has been with us for centuries and millennia. Coming back to this pratha, this tradition, even queens and princesses danced in temples. In the Belur temple of Mysuru, Karnataka, the Belur temple is made of black granite. And just in front of the Garbhagriha, the sanctum sanctorum, there is a beautiful Rangapitha, the round, circular, black granite stage. Queen Shantala of the Hoysala dynasty used to dance there. There are umpteen records of princesses and queens and noble women dancing and singing in temples. Devadasi, the very word, Dasi, as Meera would call herself, Meera Dasi Janama Janamaki, Padi Tiharo Pai. The Dasi word is not slave. The Dasi, or if you want, slave in love. Shringara Bhakti. So the Devadasi and Deva word also is worth understanding. I'm sure you are all scholars, you know that the word Deva comes from Div Dhatu in Sanskrit, which simply means resplendent, incandescent, light, prakash, tejas. Therefore, Divyata, Devi, Devata, Deva, Devatva, Divas, as in English, day. All these come from that one single dhatu. So Devadasi, it is a samarpan, it is celebration, it is homage to the light, the tejas of cosmos, the universe, the world, indeed all life. This is how it started. And the best decked up in flowers, jewelry, silk clothes, all this was presented to the god. And temple was not a temple like today that either to bribe the god or ask for favors, or at the time of certain celebrations like sorry, Navaratri or Ramanavami or Krishnashtami, you go to temple. The temples were really community centers. They were centers of social discourse. They were the places where people met each other, gossiped, but also unburdened themselves of their problems. These were the places where children came, where women came. So the whole tradition had a very holistic approach. It had a very different meaning over the decades and centuries and millennia, as it happens to everything. And as you said, with invasions, akramana, of people with different ideology, with different ideas and concepts. Especially in North India, the institution died down, and it came to such a pass. Like in Odisha also, the Devadasis were called Mahari. They all went underground. The gurus went underground. And in South, under the influence of the British, first the Mughals, then the British, we know that the Shara Act was passed, and certain very grand, educated, Western educated Tamil ladies, they insisted that Devadasi was a prostitute, and therefore all this should be banned. And I think it was in 1943, as late as that, if I'm not mistaken, or 45, the British passed this law, which is redundant. Another thing I would like to mention is that Devadasi is called Nitya Kalyani. And at every function, utsava, event, her presence was necessary. She was auspicious. Okay?
So, in context to that, can I ask how does the resurgence or renaissance of Odissi take place? Because when the Gotipuas go underground, the Maharis go
I didn't
underground,
say
nobody is
Gotipua. I'm sorry, I did not say Gotipua. I said Mahari.
okay. Uh, so how does the resurgence happen post-independence, and how does it get the so the question is, in the West, what is known as folk is pretty different, but what the Natya Shastra talks of as the Margi or the Deshi, and then post-independent India says classical and folk in completely different manners, and there are a lot of forms that are still struggling to get their art form recognized, and I think Odissi does have that kind of a history. Would you like to elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, you have again put too many things in one question, so I will try. The
Sorry.
word Odissi also is very new. Let me let me just
Mm-hmm.
say that 1947 is very recent. We are talking about Bharat Varsha. I'm not talking about
Mm-hmm.
India. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, I said Maharis and the Gurus had to go underground so that
Hmm.
in 1954, the first time a lady, a young lady came and danced in the inter-university, the first or second inter-university festival in Delhi. And this is history, Priyambada. I call her Mini Appa, Dr. Priyambada Mohanty Hejmadi. Later she married another doctor. She's a zoology professor. And she just came and did a batu or some, and the Dr. Charles Fabry who was one of the jury, they awarded the second prize. It was so beautiful. But then they said, but what is this? Where is this from? What is the name? And when they were told that this is from Odisha, and about the nomenclature, nobody was sure. So they called it Odissi. It is as recent as that. Number one. Number two, that is. Number three, there were these wonderful families in Bhubaneswar. Bhubaneswar is new, in Cuttack, which who encouraged their daughters to learn Odia system of music, and they ferreted out certain people, gurus, who were in the theatre. It's common knowledge that Gurus Pankaj Charan Das, Guru Deva Prasad Das, Guru Kelucharan Mahapatra, they were all in Annapurna Theatre before they were invited to teach independently, and they started creating repertories. So they were in theatre. And it's recorded history that Guru Kelucharan Mahapatra, with his wife Lakshmi Priya, who was not then his wife, danced Dashavatar as an invocation at the beginning of a certain play. Now, the Mahari tradition, and it is important to understand the word Mahari, where it comes from. They were under Bhitar Gani Mahari, and so there were Maharis who danced in front of Lord Jagannath and Subhadra and Balabhadra, and there were others who stood outside near the Indradhwaja and sang. Now, the Mahari word is very beautiful. We know that there are Saptalokas, Bhu, Bhuva, Swa, Mahar, Jana, Tapa, Satya. Mahar is the fourth loka connecting the Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha, where our solar system is our sun. Prakashit hota hai, is shining. Therefore, Bhur, Bhuvaha, Swaha, Tat Savitur Varenyam. Then Mahara Lok, Mahaha is the fourth loka, where it is said Apsaras, Gandharvas, Kinnaras, Yakshas reside. And therefore, Mahari, the Apsara on Prithvi, dancing in front of the Lord. Now, these Maharis had gone underground, Gurus had gone underground, and slowly they were brought out. But you mentioned the word Gotipur. Where does Gotipur come from? Goti is one, Gotiye, Goti, Pur, Ladka, the boy. When Maharis and Gurus disappeared, there was no further entertainment, and Mahari was not just the Devadasi in the temple. There have been usually three levels. Dancers in the temple, Rajadasis who danced in the courts as well, and the Alankaradasi or the Samanya Dasi who danced at events and functions in society. So when the Rajadasis and all these vanished, they disappeared, they went underground, there was no television, there was no radio, there was no podcast, there was nothing. They had to create some entertainment for people. So Rai Ramachandra of the Diwan of Puri Maharaja conceived of the idea that the Akhada Pila, the boys who learn Kushti, Pahalwani, and who have to do bandhas, these very acrobatic postures as part of their training. And they start from as young as 3 or 4. He started training them before their voice cracked and before they attained puberty, and then started dressing them up as girls with the full alankara, and they started dancing in public for the zamindars, for the utsavas, celebrations, events, festivals. So that is the Gotipur tradition, which is an aberration of the original tradition or an appendage. Now it has become popular only because of its acrobatic postures. Dancing as such is not there. Mahari tradition, therefore, and the Gotipur tradition, from which Guru Kelu Charan Mahapatra also originated, Deva Prasad Das also. Pankaj Charan Das came from the Mahari, his grandmother was a Mahari. All these people combined together after the success of Priyambada Mohanty's Delhi sojourn in 1954. And there was a Jayantika in 1959, the conclave of gurus and scholars, who then came to a certain 45-minute repertory, and that repertory was put into motion, which I also learned. But, of course, as it happened with Bharatnatyam also, repertory has expanded now to cover every dimension. You mentioned certain dimension earlier. There are other dimensions. Like I've done research on Gita Govinda. Jayadev has mentioned the ragas also, the melodies, the raga. Nobody sings in that raga. Why? If Kshetrajna, Purandara Dasa, even Tagore have to be Muthuswami Dikshitar or Shyama Shastri, they have to be sung in the very raga and notations which they wrote. Poor Jayadev, what has he done? Why should he be given a short shrift? So going back to Sangeeta Ratnakara, which is within 50 years of Jayadev, we found all the ragas. Karnat, Desakhya, Malav, Ramakri, Gunakri, and so many beautiful ragas. Plus, Jayadeva's Gita Govind is danced any which way. It sounds a beautiful text with a lovely flow of alliterations, and it's very, very adorable text, I would say. But it has so many levels. It has Shabdartha, meaning of the actual word. It has Bhavartha, how, in which context is presented. And the Gudhartha, the Gudha is the deepest level. It's an allegory. Nowadays, people don't know Sanskrit. They know English, even that they don't know well. They don't know their mother tongue. And if I may add, this is the Nehruvian education system that we adopted. Harrow, Cambridge, St. Stephen, Oxford, all very well. What about our own treasures hidden in languages? So I have gone to that extent. Each word has to be understood and presented that way. So coming back to Odissi, the repertories have expanded, some in a very beautiful positive direction, others not. But that's okay. Our liberal outlook. India is very liberal. Each one is welcome to their own interpretations. Otherwise, there would not have been any tikas and any commentaries on any further from Mahabharata and Ramayana to Puranas. So I think we need to understand through Odissi, what you asked, the emergence of modern day Odissi, that so many streams come together to present one stream, one river that we see today. Who knows whether that river, like Saraswati, goes underground in future, or whether it even gathers more momentum in whichever direction. The third thing you had asked about, the terminology. Classical and folk and tribal is not our terminology, sure, as Desi and Margi. When in 1953 they insisted, the government that there should be academies, there should be some institutions. That is when Sangeet and Natak Academy, Sahitya Academy, Lalit Kala Academy were founded, and in a great hurry to put the wheels in motion, they immediately created these terminologies. They became classical, tribal, and folk. So therefore, when I was chairman for a brief period before UPA threw me out in 18 months actually, I insisted that these terminologies be scrapped. There should be no hierarchy, as if classical is hung from the tree or from the heaven, and then folk, and then tribal. Actually, the tribal is most important, because it is the grassroots. From there, everything has sprung up. Another work that I've done, and it's an unending work, is the tribal roots of so many of our popular beliefs, concepts, and stories. The tunes, the melodies, the drums that they play, the rhythms, the steps, the energy. All this is something that we need to look at. A fresh look is necessary. The folk dances, of course, in every corner of India, they are there, but unfortunately, they are also becoming very fashionable with satin costumes and a lot of fake jewelry. That is a given in any rising society. So that is my answer to your multiple questions. I hope you are satisfied, or have I left out anything?
Awesome. No, no, you haven't. Uh, my next question was because during the earlier answer, you were talking about the formation of the SNA and around 59, 53 is what you keep mentioning, which must have been an exciting time, exactly post independence, 5 or 6 years into it. Uh, how did the SNA contribute to the scene of the arts in Delhi primarily? And what role did Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay have to play? How was SNA formed, probably, is the more important question.
That history is on the website, but I'm so happy that you have mentioned the great lady's name, Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. I revere her. I
Mm-hmm.
love her. And she was a family friend, and she was my friend, my guide, my, in a way, not mentor, because I don't think she had such presumptions.
Mm-hmm.
But she was the one who, she was chairman of Sangeet Natak in 1977, 78, 70, when Janata government came after Indira Gandhi's defeat, after the emergency. And she brought me into the General Council, and she insisted that I should come and attend meetings, and she would personally telephone me. And I was busy dancing and touring and this and that. But one thing may interest you, and then I'll come to Sangeet Natak Academy's role, the wider role, that in 1978 or 79, I forget the exact year, it's in the minutes. She insisted, and I was a little late, and she'd kept my chair right next to her on the left side. On the right side chair was seated Dr. Kapila Vatsya, and then the vice chairman of the academy. And it was a very important meeting to discuss and finalize the Sangeet Natak Academy Awards. Even today, they are very prestigious because they are the only ones in the field of performing arts. Then, at that time, it was even more so. Kapila kept on insisting on Kalanidhi, a lady who was teaching Abhinaya in Bharatnatyam, who for 30 years was just a housewife, had given up. And then later, I think after her husband's demise, or the husband was old and everyone insisted, and she came back to teaching, and then a little bit of performance or whatever. Very nice. She insisted that this lady should be given the award. And I insisted, having done my homework, that Indrani Rahman has been overlooked for so many years. She must be given the award even if it's late. And then I had to take them back into the history of Indian dance, of independent India. It was Indrani Rahman who brought Bharatanatyam to the north, who brought Kuchipudi to the north and internationally took it. She was the one who went to Orissa and learnt a couple of items and brought Gurudeva Prasad Das to Delhi and took him abroad. That was the first time people saw Orisi abroad. That was the first time people saw Kuchipudi abroad. Maybe that was the first time people had seen Bharatanatyam abroad. So I said Indrani Rahman's role has been overlooked. And of course, she was given the award, and I was very happy. Of course, Kapilaji never liked me for that. Never mind, she's a great lady too. Sangeet Natak Academy till today remains the one and only, unfortunately, one and only organization set up by the government, which has had far reaching consequences and far reaching results. It's not just the scholarships and the fellowships and the grants that they give. Of course, that means a lot because there are artists who need money, there are organizations in every part of India which need money. And as the time passes, there is Bollywood, there are the television serials, all kinds of other entertainment channels are open. Then we were earlier talking about all these things. Sangeet Natak Academy's role has become more and more important and significant in preserving and presenting certain role, a certain respect, certain level of Indian performing arts. Let's not forget, National School of Drama is a bacha, is an offshoot of Sangeet Natak Academy. Of course, the bacha has grown much larger. But even today, out of generosity, Sangeet Natak Academy continues to give awards and grants even for theatre. Whereas National School of Drama is only meant for theatre and they have grants and prizes and awards equal to Sangeet Natak. So anyway, this was for your information, I'm sure you know that. So Sangeet Natak Academy was set up in every state also, but the Central Sangeet Natak Academy still holds the respect of people and the artists, and there are greater hopes from the academy to grow more. Unfortunately, the funds are slashed year after year, so one doesn't know where the official thinking is. But anyway, let us talk about the positive side. The academy must be there, academy must be strengthened, academy must perform even more.
I just wanted to ask Sonalji when she was talking about the positives and how specifically when she was answering my question about the Guru Shishya Parampara and the Devadasi tradition. She also briefly mentioned about uncertainty of the future, which I think we can never totally figure out. But having had the advantage of the vantage point of a great artist, and having also participated in these wonderful initiatives by the various governments like the Sangeet Natak Academy, how do you look at the future, and how do you see a revival of the Indic traditions of art happening? And do you have a positive view of it, or do you think that not enough is being done? And if so, what is it that you would want Indians and the state to do? Because one of the things that I feel is that traditionally arts in India have been popular arts. It's not been elitist. Artists and the work they do has always been accessible to common people like us. But now, when I go to watch a Bharatnatyam performance, for example, in Delhi, you only see a very distinct kind of people there. I don't know if I should call that elitist, but that access to the masses has reduced drastically. So how do you see that changing in the future?
Oh, long question. I'd mentioned Bollywood, and the effects of Bollywood are felt, the tremors are felt
Right.
worldwide, globally. Even where you live in that great country, the Bollywoodians are everywhere.
Yes, ma'am. I live in India only.
All right, chalo, wherever she lives. But I say globally, the Bollywood quote unquote culture has spread like wild weed. You understand weed? Weeds have to be weeded out by a very well thought out strategy and plan. Now, I don't say all Bollywood is needs to be weeded out, but we understand. You understand what I'm saying. People, even grandmothers, are learning Bollywood dance, which they can show off at mehendi and music and all that. I mean, it's gone to that absurd limit. Anyway, leave it. So the effect of Bollywood growing humongously naturally affects the performing arts. Now, even folk theatre, Jana theatre like Bhaval, Nautanki, and so many others, Terukutu, they all have taken a beating. You are talking of Bharatanatyam. Now, Bharatanatyam, the artists, I'm going to the second point, the artists are also responsible, I feel, and I've talked about that in many places. Artists are not educated or literate enough or socially aware enough to understand what should be done to really bring in the people. Being effective or being very savvy on social media is not enough. What people want to see is something that they can take home, with which youth can connect. For the youth to connect, you don't have to wiggle your hips. Now, 3 days later, I have a TEDx talk. I'm invited to so many conventions, conferences. I talk not only on dance, for your information. I am the one artist I'm told to be invited to variety of events because one thinks, one is aware of what's happening, and one needs to connect with social issues. That is what the artists are not doing today. They are only happy doing performances, collecting checks, wanting another grant, wanting another tour, wanting another program. No, that's understood. Okay. What is beyond that? And unless you go beyond, unless you link and you bond with today, it's going to happen that slowly, you can dance with all the pretty costume and pretty makeup and pretty jewelry. And they all look like coming out from one conveyor belt. I've stopped watching Odissi. I can't watch it. I have stopped watching Kuchipudi and Bharatnatyam. It's all the same. They look the same. It's the same repertory. I am not condemning, please. I'm using these words, as you can understand, with a great sense of um, I cannot understand how and why artists can be so unaware. So therefore, what is needed is Jana Jagrati. Jana Jagrati, raising people's awareness through your own Jagrati, through your own rising level of awareness. I feel people have to be more vocal. Artists need to be more vocal. Where are they? The authors and the drama people, the theatre people are vocal, the painters are vocal, dancers and musicians are mute. I don't understand that either. So there is a kind of a fear from early years that if we speak up, if we speak out, if we say something which is not okay with the present administration, whatever year that may be, whichever dispensation that may be, I will be overlooked for grants, tours, programs, etc., etc. Because this has happened with me. I spoke up against emergency 1975. I refused to perform, where many luminaries in my field and in music, they all went out on a limb to perform. And I was blacked out from Padma Awards, from grants, from television, from radio, from public performances, government celebrations, everything, for years. My first Padma Award came in 1992. Whereas in 1970s, the decade of 70s, all my contemporaries got their Padma Shris. In later decades, the much younger dancers got their Padma Shris. And it was President Venkatraman who had to summon me to Rashtrapati Bhavan. Sonal, I hear Where is your biodata? Show me. And he went through the awards and honors and he said, something is missing here. You forgot your Padma Award. I said, sir, if I didn't get it, how can I write it? He said, I will rectify this national mistake. One sentence, Ashish, I got up and tears rolled down my eyes. President of India said this. That is how Padma Bhushan came straight away. And then the Padma Vibhushan in 2003, I was rehearsing my student Meera, Microsoft. She had come from Seattle. Her performance was on 27th January. 25th January, there was a whole lot of television people at my house. My staff called up and said, so I said, what have I done now? Have I said something? Any controversy? Because I'm known for that. And one fellow came and said, Madam, aap kahan hai? Where are you? Congratulations, we've come to take your bite. What for? And I said, ma'am, you got Padma Vibhushan. And my jaws fell open. I mean, my jaws just dropped. So what I'm saying is that dancers, musicians, performing artists in these two fields have to understand the flow of time, newer issues which are really old but in new form and new terminology, the new lingo, as Sonali had been mentioning in the earlier questions, and really come out of their shell, speak, perform in a way that would link up, that would bond. Now, when I do Sabrang, I did it as a challenge. I did my Navarasa, Shringaram, Kshiti Nandini Viharane, Veeram Dhanur Bhanjane from Ramayana. It's an old Navarasa based on Ramayana. And I wove in Bollywood songs. People were they stood up and clapped because it was done in such a way, like I wove a fabric, they never knew what hit them. I'll give you an example. Hasyam Shurpanakha Mukhe. Okay? So when Ram saw Shurpanakha making amorous overtures, he must have laughed. I brought in, within this Sanskrit text and Abhinaya, the song from Padosan, what Ram would have said, Yakachatura Nara Karake Singara. मेरे घर के द्वार में घुसत जात हम हंसत जात. And it was done in such a way, I was dancing my classical dance. My classical singer was singing. There was no cheapness. So people have tried to emulate, but they've not succeeded. Ashish, I say this because even famous senior artists have tried. Because the classical sense of auchitya, what is appropriate, what is not, like the matra measure of a medicine, that has to be understood, the sense of balance. Oh my God, I could go on, but then that is the whole thing, that I hold workshops, I give lectures, I give interviews like this one, so many, I write, and now I'm the Yoga Kala Peethadhish at the Swami Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhan Samsthan. Dr. Nagendra, who is Modi ji's yoga guru, is a very old institution, great university. So again, my work is to say Nritya Yoga is the greatest yoga. And that is why Shiva has been given the title of Nataraja. The Adi Yogi Shiva is called Nataraja, not Yogi Raja, not Vaidya Raja, not Gita Raja, not Neta Raja. Done.
You mainly touched upon the artists, how they should look at these things. Do you think that there is the role of the state also, which...
State has a very big role in the absence of corporates helping arts. They are all for sports where you can count the numbers. You can digitize the number of runs, the number of wickets, the number of goals, and I am really fed up of that. The corporates have not come forward; they are not playing their role.
Even in sports,
the
state has been is biased towards just one game. That's also an allegation which is not entirely incorrect.
That is okay, but if the state wasn't helping the arts, all these academies would die down. There are so many smaller and bigger things that the state, the state of India and the individual provinces
Right,
are
right,
doing.
right. I wish that we could have gone on and on, but I I respect your time, and we already lost a little bit of time in the beginning. Maybe we'll have another conversation sometime in the future, and I would really look forward to that. But thank you again, and I hope that you go on to win the Bharat Ratna and many more accolades for the wonderful work that you've done for the country.
Thank you for your Ashirwad and Shubhkamna.
Thank you from my
Thank
side
you.
too.
Thank you,
God
madam.
bless.
Thank you.
Namaskar.